Hey, this is Lord Ahriman, and you're listening to What's Metal.
All right, so we are at the Wizemann in Stuttgart to do this interview. You're on a very successful tour with Cannibal Corpse. As far as I've heard, ticket sales were really good so far. Yeah, maybe you can sum up a little bit how the tour went so far.
Yeah, it's. We're basically continuing the success we just had in the US together, with big venues, sold out shows, and awesome crowds. So, I felt like, we've been touring with Cannibal many times in the past. I know we're a good combination. You get the most fucking brutal death metal, and then you get Dark Funeral, and of course we got two great support bands with us also. It's a great combination for the crowd too. So I'm not surprised it really, brings people.
No, I mean, but it's great to see this, especially since there are quite a few tours going around these days. So there's actually some competition, for the crowds.
Yeah, it's you always like, fuck man, when you see all your favorite bands are out on tour yourself, that they are, you feel like, well, they bring all the crowd, and you're always a little bit worried, fuck, is anybody even gonna show up? And then you get so surprised when you come to a sold out, big hall, and like, fuck man. And it was the same in the US. We just toured the US with Cannibal. There were so many good bands on tour at the same time. And then I was told by the tour managers that tour was bringing the most people of the metal tours at that time. And I was like, how can this be possible? There's so many other great bands on tour. But of course, I'm really thankful for the interest and the support we get from the fans. But it's in one way, it's really cool. I have confidence in what we're doing, and being out with a good package. But on the other hand, it's like, it feels a little bit strange, because that, fuck, those bands should bring way more people than us. Yeah.
But I mean, at least in Germany, everybody's very hungry still, for live shows, because there was nothing happening for such a long time now, yeah? All right, but that sounds good. So for today, actually, I brought a good amount of quite nerdy questions, actually, because I want to dive back a little bit into the old days, and obviously have some current stuff as well. But one thing that always kind of like was unclear to me is how you initially actually started. I remember when the mini CD came out, it was 94, and David at the time did most of the interviews for like smaller fanzines, and he referred to you guys already starting to play together in 92, I believe. Yeah. But maybe under a different name. Yeah. So like, how did you initially meet, and how did you get started with this? Collaboration or working together, which ultimately ended in Dark Funeral.
Yeah, I guess you can say it was a 2-3 years process until the band became Dark Funeral. I grew up in the north part of Sweden, and I moved to Stockholm when I turned 18, which was 91. And I had a band in Luleå where I grew up called Satan's Disciple. But I felt like that city and the scene was basically me and just a few more people. And then I saw the scene, the extreme metal scene in Stockholm. I needed to go there. So I moved to Stockholm in 91. We're trying to find people. Everybody were into death metal. I like death metal, but that's not where my soul is, when I come to writing music and the message I want to bring forth. So it was kind of difficult to find people who wanted to play black metal. Eventually, the first, maybe not many people know this, but the first kind of people I talked to, we actually talked about it the other day. Fredrik was, when I moved on, my bassist now, Adra Melek, he had a band called X-Crusade at that time. And I was actually offered to start playing with them, but I said, for once, I was like, I'm going to start my own band. And secondly, I felt they were too technical what I could play at that time. But he was one of the guys we talked about, getting into the band. But also had Lars Rosenberg from Entombed. He really wanted to to join the band I was trying to start at that time, and also the bassist from Lobotomy was also, like maybe I should join on bass, and I did some audition with some drummers. Didn't really go any well. So, and then I met Blackmoon a couple of months later, and he was like, "Yeah, I would like to do maybe something more extreme than Necrophobic, but I still want to do Necrophobic. But I would like to do something more extreme that you're, trying to get together." And we became good friends, and start practicing together. At that time, since this was me trying to find people at that time, the band was called Ahriman, and the first lineup we put together was with a drummer called Nico, who was part of forming Amon and Mars, and Damgross. So it was me, Nico, Damgross, and Blackmoon. And the first song we wrote with Nico was In the Sign of the Horns, and at that time we were called Ahriman. Later I felt like we can't. I didn't want the band name after me, because that was my name. I felt like we need a band name. So I remember me and Blackmoon sitting at my place one day and was coming up with different kind of names, and we were talking about what the music, what kind of image we wanted to portray with the music, what, like an image. Then I was like, how about we had tried different kind of dark, different kind of funeral combinations, and I was like, what about Dark Funeral? And we both like, fuck yeah, we got it. Yeah, and there you go. And eventually at that time, it didn't work with Nico, so we brought in Draugen on drums, and he was doing his own bands, playing with his own black metal band. So he said, I help you guys out until further notice, but I don't want to be permanent member in the way, but I help you out. And and then we did the Miniseed, and he felt like, yeah, now I helped you enough, so I gotta move on with my own stuff. So that's a short story of how it all began.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, it's the first time that I hear that at that level of detail. Very interesting. So, I mean, you mentioned the mini CD. I mean, you never went through the stage of recording demo tapes as such, but put out the CD straight away. But I assume with, let's say, 2 years ahead of the release, you started writing songs. There must be material that you kind of like dropped. I suppose. So what happened to that stuff? Did you, was there a lot of material? Did you use it in any way later on?
No, there's no songs that we didn't release, because I always worked on songs until I'm satisfied. And of course there's lots of riff that we don't use. But whenever, I'd rather work on a song until I feel 100% satisfied with it than just doing some kind of B-side songs that some bands do. I can't work like that, but there's lots of rehearsal tapes and stuff like that, and maybe there's some stuff that I forgot about that on there. I still have the tapes, but
maybe you need to go digging at someday. Maybe I don't know.
Maybe one day.
Yeah. So another thing that I noticed that you as kind of like the initiating factor of the band, somehow to me always was a little bit in contrast with Blackmoon doing most of the early interviews that I read in fanzines. Maybe it's subjective from my side, because I maybe only got those fanzines where he gave the interviews. But did you have like an arrangement on how to distribute the duties that come with doing a band and with the interest in the band?
Well, I think it came quite natural. I was not interested to be doing interviews. I had no interest in that. And for him, he liked to talk, so he could do that as much as he wanted. It was, as I said, I had no interest to be in the public eye. So, but then when I became the only original member left, whether I like it or not, I came in a situation where I had to kind of open up a little bit. But I still feel, that's why I don't do many interviews these days. I have no interest in that. I never had interest in that. I feel like me as a person is absolutely not in any interest. It's what I create, whether it's music or with all my design stuff or whatever. That should be in the focus, not me. And I always felt like that, and I still do.
So when Blackmoon left the band, were you still in touch with him until he passed away, something like 10 years ago, or what was your relationship?
It's 10 days to the day today.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it was on and off. Something people don't know. I mean, he was on and off, and he hated people for various reasons. He was kind of pissed off on me on certain things, but at the same time, I was probably the only one who was always there for him when he needed it. And he knew that he could always call me. He could hate me one day, next day he could call me like, "Hey man, Ahriman, I need help with this and that," or whatever. And I guess I didn't realize how important that was for him until I came to the funeral. I met his mother. It was the first time in a long time I met his mother. And I was the only one she came up to. And she was like, she was almost crying when she saw me. And she came hugging me. And apparently David had told her so much, how much I had helped him. You know, in the last couple of maybe 6 months or 4 months or something, he contacted me and needed help with business structures and stuff like that. And I did everything I could to help him. And I got the lawyer involved and, you know, to do it the right way. And yeah, it's kind of, I almost managed to fix everything. And then, yeah, he died. So, yeah, it was a tough period for sure.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it from the outside, to me, it just looked like, you know, he has completely retreated from the scene, or to a large extent at least, which was very much in contrast to, I don't know, like, you know, like let's say in the mid-90s, he was still talking about, you know, his solo project, you know, the Blackmoon project, and that it will soon be released on No Fashion and so on. So he apparently had very big plans.
Yeah, and as I said, I was trying to help him. He came to me and, you know, when I started building my own home studio and stuff like that, he came to me and, you know, he wrote notes, everything. I mean, I'm not a studio geek or whatever. I'm just managed to, you know, do the most simple stuff to the pre-production or whatever. But he still, you know, came to me once in a while every time I upgraded, and I was like, okay, so what did you put together now? I need to, you know, put together something like this too. And he wrote notes. I told him, okay, this is what I got. But yeah, I don't know. You know, he had, I don't want to go into much detail, but he had a difficult life with himself. So yeah, it was difficult for him to get things done. Yeah. So, and that's the reason why. Yeah, one of the reasons it didn't work out with Necrophobic or with Dark Funeral or with anybody. You know, I was actually the one, even it was my old fucking bandmates, I was actually the one who fucking put together the Infernal guys. Everybody actually didn't like each other. That's, you know, when they were playing with Dark Funeral, it was a big, you know. But I was like, man, fucking, you know, give each other a call and fucking put together something, because it's not going to work with Dark Funeral, but maybe you guys can do something. So I was actually the one who initiated that idea when David wanted to start something new. I was like, fucking call them girls, call us man, do something. So, but I, you know, some fans know things different, so I get a lot of shit from that. So I was like, fuck man, if people just knew the truth, how much I always was there and trying to fucking do things, even though I always got the shit. So it's yeah, I kind of try to brush it off because I know the truth. But sometimes I feel like people should know the whole story. Of course, yeah.
Well, I mean, our listeners will will listen to it and they will know. Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. That was something I understood when I met his mother. That when she came hugging me, I was like, told me how much I meant for him. You know, something what he told her, and I was the only one who always was there. Apparently, that's her word, not mine word. So I was kind of, I was really touched when I heard that, and I was kind of surprised too.
I mean, the one thing that you refer to that, you need a certain, let's say, harmony or chemistry between people so that you can work together. I mean, that must, especially in a touring situation, that sometimes probably is a challenge, right? I mean, how do you, or maybe over the years, have you developed some, maybe let's say a certain skill set to identify, let's say, if a band member would be suitable also, not only maybe to write songs and record, but also to make it out on the road? Is there something that you pay attention to?
I mean, with experience, you learn a lot of stuff, and it's good to discuss certain things too. Things doesn't work on tour. It's good to talk about it. Like, we gotta avoid this because it's never gonna be good. And you always gotta give everybody their own space when needed, stuff like that. But yeah, it's hard to really tell everything in words, but yeah.
So I think the first time that I saw you playing live was in '97, and we briefly talked about this earlier. That were gigs that you played with Baltzegos. If you think back of that tour, what are your memories? Is there anything that stands out?
Well, we had a good tour. It was crazy times, when you're young and crazy, and at that time the black metal scene was just more insane. I was more insane. It was just crazy times, but good times at the same time.
And touring-wise, how have things changed today? Are there kind of like different standards, or do you approach it in a different way?
Of course. I mean, now we play better venues. I mean, sometimes we play shit venues like we did back in the days too, but that's part of the game. But we are fortunate to play better venues, sometimes have better, I mean, we don't always have good backstage room like this. But today we have a really good venue, a good backstage room, good accommodation and everything. So, of course, the standard have been, come up on the ladder a bit.
I think one thing that has definitely changed also over the years is that at least, like the sound guys and the venues, they know much better on how to deal with this kind of extreme music. Yeah, let's say back then when you were touring for Secrets of the Black Arts, I mean, the sound was partially atrocious, really, because I think the sound guys didn't know how to actually do the mix. And nowadays, maybe technology has progressed. People have a better appreciation for the music as well.
The equipment is better nowadays than before, also. So I mean, it's the same if you listen to old demos or albums. That's why I don't get when people nowadays like, it's sell out to have too good production, it should sound like it did in the early 90s. Well, there's a reason it sounded like it did in the early 90s, because that's what you could do at that time, basically, with this kind of music. Also money-wise, I mean, you don't really have much money to, put in on a recording session. Now, studios are more equipped, the technology is better and everything. Of course, you can do better production. And ever since our mini CD, we always try to. I find it completely pointless to spend time writing songs, go into the studio to record, and record with shit sound. Why would anyone want to do that? I never understood that. Not even in '93 or '94, I couldn't understand that, and I still don't. But of course, there's still some old records, with the atmosphere. But it's from that time. It's different times now. So you gotta live it in now and not in the past. And I don't really like to look in the past. I always look ahead of me. Yeah. That's why whatever happens, I can move on quite easy, because I never look back. I always try to move forward, do things better, everything. So yeah, that's the way I always live my life.
I mean, to me back then it was, I mean, that was a great time also because, I mean, what younger people probably don't realize is that, at the time there was, the internet was only starting out. There was no YouTube. The only way how you knew about a band was from the actual record, and you saw maybe the band picture on there, but you've never seen the band performing live.
Tape trading, before everything, when everything you were writing by hand or by typewriter.
The visual impression of a band was extremely limited. Yeah, you just never knew what a live show would look like and what these people actually look like on stage and how they might act. Yeah, like everything was so, mysterious still, maybe in a certain way. And nowadays you can go online and check how they play live and then decide to go to the gig or not. Yeah. Actually, now talking about the first tour or the first full length. There was a statement actually in the booklet. When it comes to fan communication, back then you were still sending letters, right? Which was something like, include an IRC or die. Yeah. When they were writing your letters, I mean, how many people did you really kill because they didn't include an IRC?
Not even one of them. Everybody did it. No, but of course, at that time you didn't have any money, so and the amount of letters we received. For those people who don't know what an IRC is like it was like a note which you exchange to a stamp to return the letter, so you don't have to pay for it yourself. So that was the whole thing. You couldn't afford. You wanted to, of course, reply to as many letters as you could, but you're not made of money, especially when you're 18 years old with no real money income or whatever, So that's what was the whole thing.
I was digressing. Sorry for that. But let's go back to the live shows. So the same way how, let's say, I was looking forward to see you guys playing live. Obviously, people in more remote countries where you initially didn't tour did that as well, and you officially released a recording when you played South America for the first time. And I remember back then, at least in the magazines that were reporting on those shows, that things must have been insane in terms of the fan reception there. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that, and so that our listeners can appreciate what was going on back then.
Yeah, I mean, coming to South America at that time was like, and I remember some of our crew people said it's like, you're coming with Backstreet Boys, but it's fucking Dark Funeral. We arrived at the airport, the fans were waiting there, and it got fucking crazy. Everybody was screaming, crawling over you. And it was difficult to understand the whole thing, because for us we were like, what the fuck, what's going on? So it was really strange, and we had some venues, I remember a few occasions which you had seen, big pop bands on MTV, when they were running from the shuttle into the venue, with million of guards standing as a corridor, and people just jumping on the shuttle and trying to, touch you. And we had some of those moments. It was like, fuck, we were Dark Funeral, we just fucking play black metal, come on. So it was, I mean, it was not like we needed security for our own safety, but we needed security because it got total out of control. And I mean, we're just a couple of guys. We couldn't handle, a couple of hundred fans that just wanted to touch you. I had people, hanging in my legs, and I'm trying to, get backstage, and they were just hanging me, and I was like, come on, I just want to get into the venue. If everybody would have been calm, and you could stay there, take picture and sign or whatever, but when it's this chaos, you gotta go. Yeah. So it was like that on that tour, and it was, I mean, now looking back, it's a cool experience that we're probably never going to experience again, because it's not those kind of times now. But at that time it was just insane.
How do you look at fan reactions these days? I mean, or let's say, is there like a red line that you draw when fans approach you? Do sometimes people go too far, or?
Well, I always try to be nice and respectful Well, I have a simple policy. If you're nice to me, coming up, just being normal, chill, want to take a picture or sign, of course I do it. But if it gets out of hand, you want to start, jumping on me, trying to hug me and, hold me, coming too close, then I can take it easy. Because as I said, we had some weird situation. But of course, I understand, some people get really excited to see you, but I mean, take it easy. Then I will stay. If it gets too crazy, I don't want to be around. Yeah. So, yeah. But always, the fans, there was something I was thinking about yesterday. We had to bring up one person from the crowd on stage. Because she got hurt in the first row, so we had to stop the show. And this was right before the last song. My only concern was at that time, of course, her safety. And then I was like, I was so afraid that the security was going to take her out of the venue. I was like, fuck, man, can't take her out. She must see the last fucking song. So I was like, get her up on stage and fucking, yeah. And then I felt like, I hope people realize that when we're here together, we're just one united family. We're here together and do this together. And we're going to take care of each other. Yeah, that's the way it's got to work when you do a show. Some people, but of course we got good feedback, from the crowd when how we handled it yesterday. But I don't think some people don't see it that way, and I thought it was good that we could show that's the way it's got to be done.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking back at quite a considerable catalog of records. How do you decide or discuss in the band how you put your set list together? Because it's probably extremely difficult to pick and choose, no?
Yeah, that's why we are changing songs pretty much every night on this tour. But also, not only that, but we have a big US tour after this one. And then we're headlining, so we have a much longer set. So we got to keep kind of rehearsing those songs too. So we are swapping songs. We're going to be changing songs. I think we said now we got 2 new songs. I'm going to do them a couple of days, and then we're going to change those 2 songs, or one at a time, bring in new. So on this tour, there's never going to be the same set list every night, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any certain way how you prepare before you go on stage every night? Do you have a certain band ritual or anything?
Maybe we do, but I have this kind of strict policy for myself. It's like 1 hour before stage time, I go backstage. I don't want to be around people, or I don't want to stress before I go on stage. I want to take things slow, chill, and just, get in the right mood. Maybe there's a certain kind of rituals that's normal for me, but maybe not if somebody would be watching the whole thing. Maybe would I don't know, but it's hard to say. I mean, for me, I've been doing this for so long, so for me everything is normal that I do. Yeah. But for someone else, maybe it wouldn't be too normal, or maybe would react on certain things.
So, and same thing applies for coming off stage. So what's the first thing that you need to do then? Are you probably still maybe full of adrenaline or something, or how do you chill out then?
Well, I don't know. When you're on a tour like this, when some days, there's not too good accommodation with showers and stuff like that, you got to have a certain pace, to get everybody, so everybody get their shower. All the stage clothes got to go with the crew, and so there's certain things that we try to do as soon as we get off. But it depends on how the show went, Sometimes, there's big action going on backstage after the show. And we talk about everybody, we always talk about how it went, and, if it went good or bad or whatever, if something special happened or what we can improve for the next. Always, not always, but most of the time I get ideas, to improve the stage show and how we interact with the crowd while I'm playing. At the moment, I get a feeling for something, then I try to bring up those kind of things when it's fresh in my mind. And I always tell the other guys to do the same, but yeah.
So
we're never satisfied. We always try to improve, and yeah.
But that's a good aspiration, right? So I mean, before we run out of time, I'd like to briefly touch on the current record, obviously, as well, which, as far as I can say, has been very well received. No, I mean, I looked around a little bit, but I couldn't really see any major negative criticism, right? So, and at the same time, it's probably, at least to me personally, it's probably one of the most accessible records. Yeah, so I would have thought that maybe there would be a bit more of a backlash from the more hardcore, extreme fans. Or
yeah, it's been like that, and but I see that as a positive sign. But at the same time, I really can't understand, because some of the songs are the most extreme songs, like the title track. I don't think we have many songs that's as intense as that one. So but it's like, when you release a record that's doing, really good and reach out to a bigger crowd, of course you're gonna have those kind of trolls. It's always been like that, and I kind of feel like we got to do what we want to do. We can't let somebody else decide what we should do, because that's not what this scene and music creation is all about. But as I said, I always kind of felt like the more hate you get, the more positive result the record reach. So, and it's, you see even bigger bands than us, they get lots of shit. It's the same for them. I never understood that side of the scene. I mean, if I don't like a record, I don't listen to it. I don't spend time fucking bothering about it. Why should I? I do rather things that I listen to record I like. But at the same time, it's a positive sign. Music should raise reaction. If you don't get reaction, then it's kind of pointless music. And if you get those really hateful reaction, then you really succeeded in doing something really good. And at the same time, it's always nice to get that super positive feedback too. Then you also know that. So it's it's good the way you put it. It's good. It's nice to have a good balance of love and hate. That's what keeps you going, and you know that you're doing something good. You get the reaction of what you're doing. As I said, music should raise a reaction. If it doesn't, then it's kind of pointless music. Then you failed completely. Yeah. So, but sometimes I don't understand the whole thing. Why not challenge them? Fucking write your own record and see how good you are. I'm still waiting for. I remember one guy wrote me up the last record. I was like, I could write such record in 1 week. I said, please send me the demo next Saturday. I'm still waiting for the fucking demo.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was his words, not mine. So fucking show me. People talk. I don't talk. I do. I'm a doer. I'm not a talker. So then you get reaction to it. It's just part of the game. And I'm a big guy. I can handle it.
So maybe I'm off with that conclusion now, what I'm going to tell you, but with the title of the album, Where the Apocalypse, is it somehow like a reference maybe to the first mini CD in a way? Because Blackmoon, back in the early interviews, like when there were questions like what are the songs about, he would always say, Open the Gates is about bringing forth the apocalypse. Was kind of like a typical answer. Is there somewhat like is there some link there, or am I misinterpreting this?
No, but I find it really healthy to have different interpretations, of our music and lyrics. But the title is more based on. It was Hellemar's idea, but when we, every time when you have a record together, you got to find a couple of words that what's the English word for it? But kind of give the whole record a meaning or a title, and we felt like, if you listen to this record, that's kind of picture at least we get from the overall picture of the record. It's a very epic record, For me, I always, when I write music, I get images in front of me. But this time it was like more than ever. It's like every song is like a movie for me. I see fucking scenes in front of me when I listen to certain parts. So it's more of filmatic kind of record. That's why I felt like needed also a big title, which we feel like We Are the Apocalypse is a really big title.
So when you just said when you listen to those songs or when you play them, you see these kind of like scenes like in a movie. Do you already have this during composing, or does this come first and then you compose, or the other way around?
No. That's what I get when I'm composing. I always had this movie in front of me when I write music, and I always, most of the time, I write music acoustic too.
Okay, I didn't know that. It's a certain reason for that.
Because I need to hear. I have lots of atmospheric parts and lots of. I don't know. I know no music theory whatsoever, so I really don't know what I'm doing actually. But I need to hear the. If I have a melody, and I write a rhythms section for that, and I want to add some kind of certain atmosphere to that, I need to hear every note, every string, matching every string from both guitars, so I hear that I can't find a word for it. That harmony I'm looking for, and that harmony need to match every fucking string that's part in the chord progression. And if it's too much distortion, I can't hear that.
So at home you have acoustic versions of the Dark Funeral albums in a way, right?
Well, the first couple of riffs and songs that I wrote was on a real acoustic guitar back in my hometown. My mother's acoustic guitar that I borrowed. So that's how I started writing songs and music, because I couldn't afford my own electric guitar at that time. So with my first band, I borrowed a guitar from the studio. We could rehearse it.
Yeah, I mean, talking about songs, you will have the chance to introduce some of your songs after we're done with the main part of the interview. So our listeners obviously are going to hear some of that. Since we slowly have to come to an end, the final question that we ask is always the same. The show is called What's Metal? What is metal for you? Can you describe this? What does it mean to you?
Well, it's kind of cliche, but for me it's life. It's just, it's part of my life. It's where I feel like... where I feel free to do whatever I want and be, my own creative freedom can just go wild.